Facebook decided not to work today, so we're just on YouTube, but that's okay. We got a sweet message from my wife in the background. It says, happy birthday. Is it someone's birthday today?
Someone's...
You're texting somebody while we're on.
Connor.
Oh, I guess that's okay. So, I am really hard to buy for my birthday because I got the best birthday present anyone could possibly receive when I was 43. So 13 years ago, 56 today. Back when I was 43, I got the best birthday gift ever. Can you imagine what that was?
Mm-hmm.
My brother Steve sent me this really exclusive pocket knife.
Best thing ever, right?
Best thing ever.
Nothing better. Nothing compared.
And I'll never forget it. 13 years ago. On this day. I thought I could throw her kilter off. I thought I could throw her off kilter, and I can't.
Nope.
Peyton was my best birthday gift ever 13 years ago, and that's why I'm so hard to buy for. So a little birthday talk, but...
next to the pocket knife.
Next to the pocket knife, best birthday gift ever. And then Bella was probably my second best 7 years ago. All right. Enough shenanigans, lollygagging.
Enough horseplay.
We'll be on right after this. First of all, I'm wearing this great shirt, the Mach 5, 1967. It was a great year for cars, Corvette mostly, but yeah, I was born in 67, and we share a birthday with Abraham Lincoln and Darwin, Charles Darwin, and Bill Russell, all great guys with great contributions. Thank you to everyone who's wished us a happy birthday. We've had a wonderful week. My son Carter, my late son Carter, his birthday was on the 8th, and we were able to plant a lemon tree. There it is. In remembrance of Carter. He loved lemonade. He worked at a gourmet lemonade stand, and we thought a lemon tree would be perfect for him, so we planted that in our backyard right by his chairs, the chairs that were gifted to us from the rooftop, because Carter used to sit in those chairs, usually after a doctor's appointment, and appreciate the sunset. And you see some colored rocks in front. I got 3 of them here to show you. This one was Poe's. This is the one Poe did. It is her Kid Rock. No pun intended. But from a song, Born Free, that you want to talk about that a little bit?
It really reminds me of Carter, and it's a really pretty song.
I don't want no one to cry, but tell him if I don't survive, I was born free. There's so many lyrics in that song that really go well with Carter, and I think that's a beautiful rock. Couple others. The first rock we were given is on the left there, by Cindy, and right after Carter passed, she made this and sent it to us, and now we have a home for it. And it says, and he shall raise you up on eagle's wings, a passage from Isaiah, and we're going to be talking about Isaiah today, so that's cool. And then, of course, from the See You Again song by Wiz Khalifa, famously used in A Fast and the Furious to say goodbye to Paul Walker. It reminds me of Carter as well, and so we have It's Been a Long Day Without You, My Friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began is the next phrase, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. So look, I love this tree. We contemplate it, we pray, we talk to Carter, and that's that. So that really made my birthday, actually, Carter's tree. But everyone's been very generous, and we're looking forward to the rest of our day, because you didn't get your present from me yet, other than the sweetness. You didn't show the sweetness.
No.
Peyton she was named after Walter, after Sweetness, so she got a cool Sweetness hoodie.
I still haven't given you my present either.
Okay. Right. Is it something I could drink or smoke?
You could eat it.
Oh, okay. That's
Pretty
good.
close.
It's in my top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you. Sometimes you get questions, or I do, which are maybe not meant to be a leading question, but they're not really productive for conversation. Sometimes a question is asked to cut off conversation. Usually, those questions revolve around labels. Like somebody recently asked me online, "Are you a progressive Christian?" And, I don't like those questions. I share some similarities I have progressive Christian friends. I just hate labels. We had a surprise birthday party for our eldest son Connor recently, and a friend who was there said to me, he goes, I'm not really even fond of the Christian label lately. And he's a follower of Christ. He loves the Lord. He's passionate about his faith, and yet he said he's not even fond of the Christian label. And I understand that. I stopped using the evangelical label at first because it's been tarnished by people going by that label, but then because I felt it just didn't fit with the spiritual journey I'm on. I just don't. I don't sign off on the creed of the evangelical movement. I think there's a lot of damaging theology and psychology in that movement. And so I stopped using the term evangelical when it got politicized in the last couple of elections. But now I just don't use it at all. And I have sympathy for those who don't even want to use the term Christian, because in places and times that has been a trigger for bad people or bullies or I think that sums it up pretty well, whether it's a Spanish Inquisition or it's modern day evangelical Christians in the West who, in my opinion, have really taken the Lord's name in vain and dragged it through the mud, and are off-putting to many people who are either exiting the church or not even considering it because of the stench that arises when they walk by the church. So I do have sympathy for people who don't want to say they're Christians. And a phrase has been used lately by a group of people who aren't comfortable with the phrase, and they call themselves Christ followers. So I hate to be provocative, but I put Christian or Christ follower there. Not to say you have to choose, because again, I'm not a big fan of labels. Christ was asked, I think it's in the record of the Gospels, over 300 questions, and he only directly answered 3 of them. Because in the powder keg that was first century Judea, there was a lot of trap questions. There was a lot of thumb wrestling going on, trying to pigeonhole people or get them to say something that would dismiss them, kind of like in a court of law, that would hurt their reputation or their testimony, so that everything after they answer that question is just dismissed as, oh, well, he's X. He comes from this tribe, and we know that they're not reliable, and they're hypocritical, and they're, whatever. So a lot of times conversation will open this way when people get very heated, as they do, about emotional topics, like whether it's politics or religion. Those seem to be the 2 most charged in our time. And I think the best thing to do is to be wary about which questions you choose to answer, but also which questions you choose to ask. You could really lose a hearing with somebody. You could really go from neutral to mistrust quickly if the person you're speaking with ascertains that you're trying to checkmate them somehow, verbally checkmate them, or set them up, kind of like kids used to do on the playground, where one kid would sneak behind you and get on all fours, and then another kid in front of you would push you over. And that kind of thing. And people do that verbally. And so if they sense that that is what your goal is, you're done. I mean, in their book, they, check off a space. This guy is playing a game. This guy is trying to take a scalp. And he's not trustworthy. And there's nothing worse you can do with your character, with your reputation, than approach somebody in that manner. Now, a lot of times this happens between people who are familiar with each other, friends, former church family, or even immediate family, where you can't really talk about your feelings or talk about your beliefs because you're in a situation where Peyton said to us one time, we call them Peyton counseling sessions, when we're in the pool in the summer and we talk about our day. And Peyton said to us one time, because her passion is, believe it or not, psychology, or one of her passions is psychology. She said to us one time, why would you offer your vulnerability to someone you're not safe around, right? To someone who's going to use that information as data to process you, to use it against you, kind of like in a court of law, kind of like you have the right to an attorney, but anything you say may and will be used against you in a court of law. When you find yourself in that kind of a relationship with somebody that you had trusted in the past, it's unfortunate. And when people ask me about my beliefs, I think my beliefs don't really matter, to be honest with you, in the long run to the nature of the conversation, as much as why I believe. What I believe is oftentimes used to dismiss somebody, to impeach their character, to end conversation. How and why a person believes is much more interesting. And so anyway, when it comes to Christ, I heard an interview the other day with a man who was kind of rebuking the Western Church, what we're talking about in the evangelical movement. And he was asked, well, you sound like you're an atheist or something. And he's a Christian. He's I believe he was a former pastor. But he said, no, listen, I don't favor the modern Christian movement that carries a sword into the public square. He said, I think we're supposed to carry a shield into the public square. We're supposed to protect the vulnerable. We're supposed to tend to those who are beaten and bruised. And he said, that's the Christianity that I follow. And that really resonated with me. It reminded me of something that when Jesus was in the synagogue in Nazareth, one of the few things we have of Christ teaching in the synagogue, and I want to share that with you now. It's from Isaiah. Oh, I'm sorry. I told you it's from Isaiah, didn't I? It is. But it's actually found in the Gospel of Luke, this passage that I want to share it with you. So in Luke chapter 4, Tree of Life version, I'll help you along with it. I love the Tree of Life version, but I use the Message, the Tree of Life, the Revised Standard. I like to mix up my versions because I think all of them have strengths and weaknesses. The Message Bible is my favorite Bible to read from when I'm just reading for my personal devotions. But this says, when the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him, he unfurled the scroll and found the place. Now this would be toward the end of the scroll, right? Because it's in the Isaiah 60, 61 somewhere. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written. By the way, I say that because it shows Jesus said, let me come back. I told you 5 minutes today. It's going to be 15, but I'm not going to be much longer than that. My son Connor gave me a chess clock for my birthday today, a chess clock, one of those things you make a move and you touch it and the next guy makes a move and he touches it and it keeps time. And when I told my wife I'm going to be 5 minutes today, she goes, I'm going to put the chess clock on. So I've already lost that. But what was I going to say?
You got distracted.
You got me distracted. Oh, Christ unfurls the Isaiah scroll. Now this was common in the synagogue. There would be a reading in the synagogue and then different voices would stand up to expound on it or to argue it and so forth. In this case, Jesus unfurls the scroll to Isaiah 61, and I was going to say there were no tabs, right? There were no chapters and verses in a scroll. You had to know where to look. And so this shows that Christ had great familiarity with the Isaiah scroll. What we have today is, 66 or so chapters. Those don't exist in the day. It was just a scroll with words. You had to find your place. He opens to this passage. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Ruach Adonai is on me," the Holy Spirit. Or the Spirit of the Lord, actually. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me, chosen for a holy cause, to proclaim good news to the poor, the meek, the lowly. This is what Jesus saw was his mission. He had been anointed to be a messenger of good news, to bring good news to the meek, to the lowly. He sent me to proclaim release to the captives, the prisoners, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free the oppressed, and to proclaim the year of Adonai's favor. Maybe it's time that the church looked again and said, this is our mission. This is who we are to be. We are supposed to speak up for the vulnerable. And sometimes the vulnerable is being oppressed, to speak against the oppressor and to stand in the gap between the oppressor and the vulnerable. And sometimes the oppressor carries Christ's name, carries a Bible, has a position of spiritual authority, and oftentimes we've seen this just over the last few months with the Southern Baptist, the SBC. We've seen many instances of abuse in the Western Church and its hierarchy, whether it's the Catholic Church, by the way, or the Protestant Church. We've seen it all throughout. This is one of the reasons many people are leaving, because they see the hypocrisy and the oppressive nature of Christians in our day. Now, if you ask your fellow, you go out into the street and you ask 100 people, no matter what their affiliation is, whether it's Christian or something else or nothing, you ask them, what do you think about Christians? And unless you have, a true believer, you're going to get answers that include hypocrite among the first, hypocrite, judgmental, bigoted. Those are the three things that come to the top of the mind of your neighbor. So I have to ask, do you think we're doing a good job loving our neighbor if when our neighbor is interviewed, we're getting that kind of a critique? Do you think if Christians were the first into the breach whenever there was someone who was beaten, marginalized, oppressed, in need, do you think if Christians were the first one there, not to point a finger but to offer a hand, do you think that would be our reputation? Do you think we'd be bleeding our children and grandchildren because they don't want to carry the burden of bigoted, judgmental, hypocritical, anti-science, So, are you almost done?
Almost.
So I know it's a Super Bowl. I know you all have plans. It's our birthday. We have plans. So I wanted to keep it short, but I wanted to say to you, if you've given up the label Christian and you're going by Christ follower, none of this really matters. Our labels don't matter. How we, pose ourselves in the public eye matters very little if we don't answer this call. If we are not loving to neighbors, to enemies, if we are not prioritizing this idea that Jesus proclaims here, that we actually have good news, not bad news, not news that leads with fear and loathing, get right with God or XYZ, and real Christians don't XYZ. The nature of the church, we've lost our way. We are Laodicea. We are those churches that Christ writes to in the early chapters of Revelation who have forgotten their first love. And if we've forgotten our first love, Christ, then we certainly won't be following his mission. We'll be following Franklin Graham's mission, or or the SBCs, or some kind of a family group. Oh, you've made a marionette. Mm-hmm. It's a dangle marionette of New Boots Goofing. All right, we'll stop here so we could look at Peyton's art project. By the way, her brother spoiled her with a bunch of art gifts and a computer, right? Mm-hmm. This week. But all right, Poe, I'm going to turn it over to you. I think I've said enough. Which camera should I go to? Just stay on this one? Okay. So this is Officer James Dangle of Reno 911, Jim Dangle of Reno 911, and he's just goofing.
New boot goofing.
Just new boot goofing.
And that's actually your birthday present.
This is my present?
One of them.
Oh, I love it. Mm-hmm. Where's the bicycle? Where's the police bicycle? I want that. I want that. This is great. All right, hey, enjoy the Super Bowl, folks. And thank you, all of you who've been so generous and thoughtful of us on our birthday. 56. 13. We still have. I'm 56, and I have a teenager right at the beginning. I've got 7 more years of teen angst that I have to deal with. Pray for me, people. I thought I turned off the stream. What am I doing wrong, Poe?